Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be my birth story of my daughter. For everyone that's new to my channel, I am a first-time mom. I have been sharing my story about my pregnancy, and so this is the story of my labor and delivery. It is quite the tale, so I'm gonna jump right in, but before I do, I'm gonna remind you to hit subscribe. So I am 6 weeks postpartum yesterday. So my daughter was born 6 weeks ago, so let's jump back to that time. The night leading into induction day, I couldn't sleep. I have insomnia to begin with, and I just couldn't fall asleep. Like, it's hard for me to fall asleep as is. So knowing the next day that I was going to go through this amazing yet like really hard experience, I just couldn't sleep. I even took Unisom. I just couldn't sleep. It was 4 in the morning. I was still awake, and my induction was scheduled for 6 p.m. on 9/9/19. That was my due date. And I was panicking. Like, I woke up my husband Marco and told him, like, yo, I'm not going to be able to labor and push out our baby and do everything that I need to do with no sleep. Like, it could take days for labor. So I would need sleep. Like, I was freaking out. So I ended up falling asleep. I think it was like 6 in the morning or something, and I slept till 10. So on 4 hours of sleep, I did this. I just want everyone to keep that in the back of their mind. So the entire day, I was just kind of trembling, and it wasn't like all bad. Like, yeah, I was afraid, but it was like I was excited too. Like, this is something that I've never done before, and I've waited so long to do it, and I was so excited. But yet labor is something like you cannot control. You have zero control over what your body does, what's going to happen, like how the baby is doing, and that was terrifying. So I was crying on and off all day, and it was just like uncontrollable. Like, I was so emotional. I was like, my stomach was upset. Like, they told me before I went at 6, like, eat something because you're not going to be able to eat. So I was like, what's my best, like, favorite meal? And it was Alfredo, of course. My husband makes the best Alfredo sauce from scratch. We were eating Alfredo, and I'm like looking at Marco, and I'm like, yo, I'm scared. And he was like, yeah, I'm scared too. We got done with dinner around 4, and I went upstairs. It was like sitting on my bed, and Marco came upstairs, and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, like, you need to paint my toenails. Like, I feel like my feet are gonna be out. You need to paint my toenails. So he painted my toenails like last freaking second. And while he's painting my toenails, I'm just like sobbing. And I just sat there, and I was like, how do you come to terms with, like, you're about to leave the house and go through the most painful experience that you're ever going to have? Like, the worst pain a human body can experience is labor, and it was about to happen. So I had a hard time, like, thinking, like, what if I can't do it? And for me and my birth plan, like, I didn't want to have an epidural, and I wrote, like, I want to try my hardest to do it natural. I don't want any pain medication. Like, I just want to do it natural. And so me sitting there, I was like, you know, what if I can't do it natural? And he's like, you know, that's completely fine. Not a lot of people can. Like, you're gonna be fine. So it was just those kind of fears, like, you know, am I going to be able to do this? I'm on 4 hours of sleep. I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know the pain that I'm going to experience. I don't know what they're going to do. Like, I just don't know. So we go downstairs. I like try to pull myself together, and we get our bags, and we say bye to our cat. and we leave the house. I'm nervous.
Clover, are you gonna miss us? Clover. Hey. No? Okay. Alright. Well.
She's gonna come out.
Mm-hmm.
And we're leaving as a family of 2, and we're going to return as a family of 3. And that was like the coolest feeling ever. I walk in the hospital and we go to like the front desk in labor and delivery. I tell them like I'm scheduled for induction. I get a room, which was the room that we toured for our maternity ward tour, which I thought was really cool. Like, it's exactly what I pictured because I pictured that room because that's what we see. We got in the room.
Room tour. We got the entryway, a little hand washing station, storage, the baby warmer and whatnot. It's pretty nice. A good old duck sheet blanket. All kinds of medical things. Yeah, vomit bags. Gonna need those maybe. Oh, there's Brandi. She made it. And bed. Some monitor action over here. She's not hooked up yet. We literally just walked in. There's my couch that I think maybe is a bed. Doesn't seem that way. So that's no bueno. The rocker, not bad. Our luggage made it. And then here's the little corner bathroom. It's got just a shower, no chair. It's actually very small. Very small. So hopefully we don't need to do that. That's it.
A nurse came in, she gave me my gown, and I said, oh, I have my own gown. I hope that's okay if I want to wear it. And she said, that's totally fine. Just get in your gown. You know, I'll be back in a couple minutes. We'll get everything set up. So I'm in my gown and I put on my little hospital socks and I'm laying in the bed and I feel completely excited. I don't feel nervous at all. I'm like so ready to do this. I'm like, yes, let's get this thing going. So about 3 nurses came in, and the ones like asking me all of my like admission questions, the one starting my IV, which was like not even in the crook of my arm, it was like down here, which was so convenient, by the way, that like it didn't bend, it wasn't on my hand, like it was so convenient, so I'm happy that happened. And so I'm getting my IV. They're asking me like, what's my daughter's name? I give them my birth plan. So I'm letting them know everything. We get set up. Then we wait probably like 20 minutes after that happened. And this is at 6, like nurses' shifts changes at 7. So I'm not getting attached to anybody that's there. Let's just say that. And the doctor comes in and she's asking me a bunch of questions. I have to sign like a waiver. They asked me like if I would be okay with a blood transfusion if need be. I say yes, that sort of thing. She goes over like what they're going to do. So she says, okay, we're going to start with a pill. This is all based on like what my cervix was at that moment. But she said like originally when I got scheduled for induction, this is what they had planned, that they were going to start with a pill called Cytotec. They were going to do a Folley Balloon, and then they were going to see how long that takes. And then if I wasn't in labor, they were going to start Pitocin after that. So I had reservations, if you will, about the pill Cytotec. So I knew that this was going to be what happened. So I looked up Cytotec. I was like, I want to know everything that's going to happen. Cytotec is off-label for labor, meaning it's not approved by the FDA for this purpose. It's approved for stomach ulcers, actually. So it just so happens it makes your uterus contract and like your cervix to soften. So I say that to her, that I'm like, hey, I know that you're using this drug off-label. It's not just you, it's like every hospital in America. But I'm nervous because it's not approved because it has been known to cause uterine ruptures. So she says, okay, I'll ask like my colleague or something about that. So then I realized, okay, she's a doctor in training, which is fine, but like that let me know that. Then she went over like, okay, we're gonna check like the baby's position, and I said, okay, good, because I'm pretty sure she's posterior, which means like her face is up. When they come out, they're supposed to be face down. So she asked me all those questions, and then she had like the person that oversees her come back. They had an ultrasound machine, they did an ultrasound, and baby was posterior. She was face up. She was kind of like angled towards the side. And so they said that's no problem. Like most babies turn, you know, during labor many times. So like she'll probably just be face down and everything will be fine. So that doctor that oversees her, she gives me a handout about like Cytotec and how they use it, and like this was an elective induction, so like this was my choice and everything, which I already explained in my 39th week video, like why we have chose to have an elective induction at 40 weeks instead of waiting till 41. So she, the person that's overseeing her, she put in the Cytotec and it was 7:30. So I've been there for an hour and a half getting everything ready. She puts in the Cytotec. I'm not sure the dosage on that. And then she puts in the Folley Balloon. So the Folley Balloon is a catheter, and it goes up into your cervix, in between baby and your cervix, and like puts pressure on the cervix. Like they fill it up with like saline solution, and they like tug on it and like puts pressures, and then it dilates. She puts that in and it didn't hurt at all, and I expected it to hurt, but it didn't. And I was like, oh, I'm a champion, but we'll just humble ourselves. So that was in, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna check to see how dilated you are. Oh, by the way, I was still 1 centimeter. My cervix was the same as the 39th week. FYI. So they were like, okay, we're gonna come back in 4 hours. That's how long like the pill is effective, and we're gonna check to see how dilated you are. If the balloon falls out before then that means you're 4 centimeters dilated, and we'll just go from there. It's 7:30, and we meet our new nurse, and her name was Emily, and she was like literally the best. And she gets everything going, like the monitors on, baby's heart rate and the contractions, and we're just hooked up, and I have to stay in bed for at least an hour. 10 minutes pass and I start having contractions, and they're like in my back.
And then the baby's heart rate's on top. We're due for another contraction here any minute.
Oh my god.
Any minute now.
But I think that's good that they're happening.
Yeah, that's what we want to see.
I can just see an epidural in my future because of the back pain.
Sickles.
I think it's happening.
Oh yeah, we're on the way up. It's gonna get uncomfortable very soon. How are you doing?
It's okay.
You're okay. It's not too bad. Okay.
It's getting worse.
Alright, it's getting worse.
It's okay.
Okay, she seems fine. And we're on the way back down.
Why does it hurt the worst on the way down?
So we got 4 hours with the balloon and the pill in, unless things happen faster, but maximum 4 hours until they check you.
I wasn't really sure what a contraction was going to feel like during this or anything. Like I had a lot of Braxton Hicks like the week before and everything, and this was completely different. So it was just like awful period, like back cramps, and I didn't feel like anything in my stomach or in my pelvis or anything like that. It was just back pain. And as soon as I felt that, like I would look at the contraction monitor and I was having a contraction. So that took 10 minutes of having the pill in there for contractions to start, which was super good. Like for some people, they have to get like the pill after pill after pill, and I didn't have to do that. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, dang, like contractions hurt. And I'm like going through it, right? And I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna have to have an epidural. Like it rings in my head that I'm going to have an epidural probably 3 contractions in. Like that's how it was. Me and Marco were just chatting. You know, I'm telling him about the contractions. He's like trying to help me breathe like we learned in Lamaze class. About, I would say an hour in, so around like 8:30, I didn't really mind the contractions anymore. It's not that they lessened in severity, it was just like I learned what I needed to do to get through them. So I just breathed, and people just kept saying like, oh, you need to breathe, make sure you breathe, like in Lamaze class. I was like, you're full of it, I don't care. And that was so important because I realized if I held my breath because it was painful, or if I tensed up, the contraction was so much worse. Like it was so much more painful. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna breathe. Like I'm going to hold Marco's hand. Like it'll be fine. So it was. And I got so used to them. It was not even bothersome at all. Like I still wasn't going to be able to sleep. Like it was painful, but I just knew I could handle it. So Emily, the nurse, keeps running in and out that she can't get baby's heart rate on the monitor. This is because I have an anterior placenta and it blocks that. And baby was moving around a lot. I think I sat in bed for about 2 hours when I told her like, hey, I need to pee, and I would also like to walk around. Like I don't want to sit in this bed all night. So she puts on like the portable monitor on me, and Marco and I just like take off and we're doing lap after lap. And he's like, yo, like you're walking really fast. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get this baby out. And so we're walking. I think I did like 6 laps around labor and delivery when the nurse came and she was like, hey, I need you to sit down because like there's no heart rate like on the monitor. We just can't find it. You need to sit down and we need to find it for a stable period of time to know what's going on. And that's because like with these drugs, Cytotec or anything that puts you into labor, like it can stress out the baby because it wasn't like my body's decision. And that's like what can cause uterine rupture is if you're contracting too quickly, and it means like the uterus can tear. And I was contracting every 1 to 2 minutes at that point. It slowed down to about 3 minutes apart during the Cytotec. So I went and laid back down. She still couldn't find the heart rate, and I was like, hey, I just kind of want to sit in the rocking chair. The rocking chair really helped contractions. I didn't even have to breathe with them in the rocking chair. Like just that motion, I don't know why, but it really dulled out the contractions. Marco and I start watching, I think it was like Hell's Kitchen or something with Gordon Ramsay because he's just hilarious. And I think we got like 10 minutes in, and then it was 11:30. So it's been 4 hours. So they came back. They were going to check me for dilation. So they checked me, and I was still contracting regularly, so they didn't need to put another dose of Cytotec, but I wasn't dilated 4 centimeters. I was dilated 3 centimeters. So that's 2 centimeters that I gained in that 4 hours. They kept the Folley Balloon in, and they said, okay, we're going to check you in 2 hours to see if the Folley Balloon's ready to come out, and then we want to break your water. That's up to you. So the whole time I was thinking about it, like, should I have my water broken? Should I just wait? And, you know, the benefits are, like, it progresses labor, and that's pretty much it. The risks were like, okay, you're at risk for infection. It puts a clock on how long you can go in labor. And if you didn't progress during that amount of time, which is 18 hours for them, then you would move to a C-section. So we're just chilling for 2 more hours. Like, time really went by fast. and I didn't think it was going to, but we literally only watched that 10 minutes on the computer of that show, and the whole of the time, like, I'm just eating popsicles, and he was hungry, so he was eating chips, whatever. So they come back at 1:30 and they check me, and the balloon was ready to come out. I had dilated another centimeter, so I was 4 centimeters dilated at 1:30 a.m. and they deflated the balloon because it wouldn't like pull out on its own, and they deflated it and then pulled it out, and then they were like, okay, we're going to break your water. I just need to take a deep breath with this one. So the doctor that was like in training, or whatever you want to call it, a resident or whatever, and she had the person that was like overseeing her with her. So she took out the Folley balloon. That didn't hurt. It just came out. She is like in my cervix, like to grab the sac, I guess. And it hurts so bad. Like, I have no idea what she was doing. It hurts so freaking bad. And she takes the little poker stick or whatever and puts it up there and breaks my water. And just like a gush, like so much freaking water. I don't know why I thought like, oh, I'm not gonna know if my water breaks. Hello? Like a whole swimming pool came out. It's just going everywhere. And it's really warm, and whatever they say it like is relieving, but whatever this lady was doing hurt so bad that I was like screaming. I was like gushing tears. I just was in so much pain because she said, oh, I have to keep it open for the water to come out. So whatever she was doing to keep it open was the worst. So that's done, and the lady that like is overseeing her, she says, do you want something for pain? And I said no. She said, are you sure you don't want morphine? And I said, yeah, I'm sure I don't want morphine. I was against any pain medication that wasn't an epidural. Like, there was just no way that I was going to there was no way I was going to take it, because it affects the baby's heart rate, blood pressure, like whatever. It had side effects to the baby from the medication. So they leave, and I'm just still crying because it was like traumatic. And I'm like holding Marco's hand. He was like, you're doing so good. Like, he was just so good during this whole thing. He was like, you're doing so good. Like, just keep going. And so the nurse, the one that I really like, she was like, okay, like, contractions are going to get hard. Like, they're going to get severe because your water's broken now, and that's just what happens. And I said, okay. And like, I started having them, and the fluid kept coming out like with a contraction, and they were fine. They felt the same. Like, I was doing the same things to get through them. I had pulled myself together from that experience, and I was like, it'll be fine. Like, we just moved past that step. That's one step further to meeting our daughter. So I was doing them. It was an hour passed, and the nurse was like, I think you're going to do this natural. Like, you went through an hour of contractions that were every 2 to 3 minutes after your water was broken, and you're just fine. And I said, really? And she was like, yeah, we don't see that a lot. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I'm going to do this thing without an epidural. Probably 30 minutes passed after she said that, and I had a contraction. It didn't gradually increase. It just happened. And I had a contraction, and it literally felt like somebody had shoved a knife up my cervix and was twisting it. And I was like, no, ma'am. Like, I don't know what that is. That's something that's not even natural. Like, what's going on? Like, that is severe. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to figure out like how to get through these ones like I did the last ones. And Marco was like, you can do it. I gave him rules before we went to the hospital, like weeks before. I was like, if I go into labor, at no point can you ask me if I want an epidural. No point. Like, you cannot bring it up. You can't do that. And he also wasn't allowed to complain and like say he was hungry and whatever. I was like, Marco, like, I think I'm going to have an epidural. And he's like, you can do this. You can do this. And I'm like, you're not listening to me. Like, I can't do this. I need an epidural. And he was like, okay, just give it more time. Just give it more time. So I did. and like after my water broke, they were gonna come back in 4 hours to see how I was after that. So I was 4 centimeters dilated when they broke my water. That was at 1:30 in the morning. At 3:30 in the morning, so 2 hours with these contractions, and I said, I'm about to pull it, like I need to get an epidural. The only way I'm not going to get an epidural right now is if like I'm 9 centimeters dilated, like for real. So the doctor comes in because I asked her to, and she checked me. I was 5 centimeters. I said, nope, I want an epidural. Like in tears, like I couldn't even manage it anymore.